Alrighty, what's up, everybody? We got podcast 72, special guest coming back for the second time, the amazing Morgan. Danielle, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome. What's new in your world?
Pretty much everything is new in my world since we chatted last. I've moved. Last time we were chatting, I had just moved back from Florida and living with my parents and all the things. And now I'm in a new condo. I have a new relationship. Business is going really great. So everything is really just taken off this year for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the last time we chatted was actually December 30th of 2022, podcast 59. The title of it was Attract the Love of Your Desire, because your zone of genius is coaching women for self-discovery, for identity development, and ultimately to get over toxic relationships and become healthy in all of the relationships, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest piece in having healthy relationships is having a healthy relationship with ourselves, understanding why we're having the relationships that we're having, and then being able to become the type of person that would have the relationship we desire. So that all comes down to identity work and healing the root cause for our relationships and self-discovery as well.
Wow. And how did you get involved in this?
Well, just like most people that have their zone of genius, you turn your mess into your message. I struggled with toxic and abusive relationships for about 13 years of my life. I struggled with codependency and love addiction, and just relationship after relationship. In my teens and my early 20s, they were leaving me feeling heartbroken and devastated and just experiencing abuse in that way. And so once I discovered why I was doing what I was doing, because I didn't understand, I'd sit with myself and be like, how the heck did this happen again? How did I get cheated on again? How did I, experience this kind of abuse again? And once I started to understand that where these relationships are coming from, and it all stems back to myself and my belief patterns and my relationship blueprint, I began to peel that within myself. And once I figured that out for me, I knew that I had to basically share it with everyone that was going through the same thing.
So what you're saying is the relationships that we have are a mirror reflection of what's going on inside of us.
Absolutely. I always say we're always an energetic match for what we attract. And so if we are attracting abusive relationships, it does stem back to our experiences in childhood, and it stems back to our beliefs and the relationship that we have with ourselves. So what I like to tell my clients is every relationship that we have is just an extension of the relationship that we have with ourselves.
From past childhood traumas, potentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so when we experience trauma in childhood, no matter how big or small it could be, I work with women that are like, I have no childhood trauma. And in reality, we all have childhood trauma to an extent. It could be like not getting picked for the kickball team, or, mom had to go back to work when I was 4 years old and I felt rejected. Or it could be something like my parents got divorced and my father left and my mother became an addict. The possibilities are endless of where it could stem from. But between ages 0 and 7, when we're operating purely from ego, where we think that everything basically relates back to us, that's when we start to develop beliefs about our relationship and what it all means about us. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And then, so why do we want to attract the same thing?
I love that question. And it goes back to familiarity. And so what's happening when we, have that disruption in our identity when we're younger, it disrupts the way we think about ourselves, our self-esteem, our self-worth, our self-love. And so our subconscious will then seek out people and experiences that mirror what we had gone through or how we had felt in childhood, so that it can kind of like close a loop. But it doesn't necessarily work that way. We don't close the loop. And so for an example, if we felt rejected by our father, say our father was an alcoholic or something along those lines, and we continuously seek out men who make us feel rejected, or we seek out men who are addicts or, other things like that, to essentially say, if I can get this person that resembles dad to love me, then it will make up for all of the rejection or abandonment that I experienced in my past.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's why we
And that's powerful. So that makes sense then.
Yeah.
I mean, why would we all would want that, right?
Absolutely.
And it would work for men too if, they had an abusive mother, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it all stems back to trying to get the love that we didn't get when we were younger. And, you hear people say all the time, oh my gosh, I married my mother, I married my father. And that's what it relates back to. That's where it comes from.
Oh. Okay, we're going to talk more about this. So the last time we talked was a year ago. What's going on with you in the past year? Because, we're all on this journey of growth. And last time we talked, you mentioned that you were just transitioning from a not so healthy relationship.
So I was in a relationship, and it was the best relationship I had ever had. And it was a lot of what I wanted in a relationship. And it ended up, I ended up getting cheated on. And so I ended that relationship, and, we had moved to Florida. He had a relationship with my daughter, all of the things. And I decided, once he told me he wanted to work things out in therapy. So we went to couples therapy for about a month. And then my intuition was just screaming at me like, this was not the relationship for me. And so I decided to end my relationship, move back to Ohio, live with my parents until I found a home. And at that point, when we talked, it really felt like my life had just imploded, because at that time I was a relationship coach, and it was really hard for me to have this experience and deal with the humiliation, the shame, the guilt, and like I let everybody down. And so at that point, it all felt very, very heavy. But what I continued to believe is that everything was working out for me, that everything that I was experiencing was getting me to a point where I would attract the most epic love affair of my life. That's what I continued to tell myself over and over and over again. And so throughout that time, throughout this year, it was, I think, a month and a half after, or actually it was a month after our podcast, I had manifested my dream condo that me and my daughter live in now. It was like the most perfect experience, perfect price. It was much better than any place I had ever lived in. And so that experience happened. And then a few short months later, I met my now boyfriend, and our relationship has been such a gift and an expression of everything that I teach my clients and everything that I embody myself. And so it just went to show that I embody the thoughts, feelings, behaviors of somebody who would attract this kind of relationship. And that's why I was able to be an energetic match for that. So those are the two biggest things that I would say has really happened this year. And it all comes back to being the type of person that would have what you want.
Okay. So I want to go over exactly how big this is. So a year ago, you were questioning yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Being a relationship coach, you were just in a point of your life where you're about to end a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
He cheated on you, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
How long have you been coaching?
3.5 years.
So you've been coaching for 2.5 years, and then this happens. So now all of a sudden it's like, okay, what do I do? Now I'm helping women with relationships, and I just can't figure it out myself.
Yeah, I felt so much shame around that, and it was just so humiliating to have that experience. Somebody that I thought was, a very loving, healthy person that, a lot of things were great about the relationship, but to have that and then have it end the way that it did, there was a lot of shame and humiliation around that.
Right. And you still continue to coach.
I did. And I still showed up every single day.
You showed up. So, this is such a powerful lesson, because obviously not everyone's coaching in a relationship coaching. This happens, but life happens and we start questioning everything around us.
Yeah.
So what is it that pulls you forward?
So I continued to tell myself that everything was happening for a reason. What I took from my past was everything that I experienced in my past, all of the pain for abuse, mental health issues that I had, I took that and alchemized it into my purpose and my power. And so I knew that if I could do that in my past when things were much heavier than they were this time around, that I could do it again and I would be a better coach for it. I would be a better woman for it. I would be a better partner for it. And I continued to hold that because at that point I was like, I really don't have a choice. I don't have a choice to let myself down, my daughter down, my clients down, the audience that I cultivated over the years. I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to continue to learn from my life experiences and view it as it's happening for me rather than it's happening to me. Because I could have easily felt victimized by my experience and say, because of this, I can't coach anymore, or I can't have a relationship, or I can't do this, I can't do that. But instead, I was like, I'm going to learn everything I can. I'm going to dissect this full relationship and look at every single lesson that I can so that I can bring it forward to my clients, to my audience, to the future relationship that I have and every dating experience that I have. And because I did that, I fully believe that that's why I have the relationship that I have today, because we have to learn from the things that are going on in our lives. Otherwise, we're just constantly thinking that everything's happening to us rather than what can I learn from this experience? Our pain doesn't have to have no purpose. Our pain is there to teach us something.
Pain has a purpose.
100%.
Yeah. And this happened in a short period, right?
Very
5 months? 5 months?
Mm-hmm. 5 months. And I also like to tell my clients, like, the time really doesn't matter if you can energetically align to what you're wanting and you can essentially change your identity and your beliefs, and you continue to take actions towards what you want. It really doesn't have to take years. You can collapse time around your healing if you fully embody it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. So you lost, and you feel like there was points where you were questioning your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk more about identity today. So, identity is our beliefs. Identity is how we look at ourselves, how we think others look at ourselves. It could be the different qualities of life that we think we need and want. So identity is, it's our personalities, and we can have 30 different identities, right? We play this role, that role, this role, that role.
Yeah.
But ultimately we know it's important, right? And I think we all know that it's important to really know who we are deep down inside.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't know who you were deep down inside and this relationship of a year ago happened, you probably might have even stayed in the relationship, right?
Absolutely.
But you knew who you were, and you made the decision fast, and you didn't play the victim identity. Exactly. That's an identity in itself that you can play for years and years and years.
Okay.
And where does that get you? The same repetitive patterns over and over.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about, like, if I didn't know who I was, then I probably would have stayed in that relationship. I know what I stand for, and I know that I don't stand for being treated poorly. I know that I don't stand for being betrayed by the person that I love. And so it was as difficult of a decision as it wasn't difficult to know what to do. It was difficult to actually take the action. And so it was a very easy decision in the sense of, like, yeah, I know that I don't stand for this, and I know that I'm never going to tolerate this in my relationship. So yes, I have to leave, but leaving is the painful part.
Right. Because then you have to deal with the other identity of being a coach.
Yes. Yeah.
So ultimately, though, that first identity that you're talking about of knowing who you are over precedes every other one, right?
Absolutely. When we, I like to say, if we don't stand for something, we'll fall for anything. And so when you know what you stand for, when you know what your boundaries are, when you know what your standards are, it's easier to know which decisions you should make next. Instead of being like, well, I don't know what I should do. It's like, you know what to do. It's just difficult to take those uncomfortable actions.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. So you're coaching someone and they're not sure who they are. They want to be with this type of a person, bad boy, whatever, toxic, whatever you want to call it, but they're excited by that and they love them. But deep down inside, they don't know if they should be with them. So how do you help someone like that?
So really simply is like, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel in your relationship? And when you take how you want to feel and what you want in a relationship and you compare it to what you're experiencing in the relationship, and those don't align, it makes it very freaking clear for the person to see, okay, yeah, this actually isn't the right relationship for me. As turned on as I am by the chaos and the highs and lows of the relationship and the chemistry that comes with toxic relationships. If you can see clearly that I want to feel cherished, I want to feel adored, I want to feel peace, I want to feel ease, and your relationship is where, they're judging you, they're controlling you, they're telling you, they're calling you names, or they're not respecting your boundaries. It's very easy to see that those two things don't align. And so as difficult as it is to decide to leave that relationship, it's very easy to see that it's not what you want.
Right. And ultimately, if the person wants to feel loved, cherished, all these good feelings, but they don't value themselves and feel themselves that way, then can the relationship even work?
Right. And so the thing is like, if we don't value and cherish ourselves, if we don't adore ourselves, if we don't speak to ourselves with love and respect, why would we expect that from somebody else? I hear a lot of women say, this person is treating me this way. And I'm like, well, how are you treating yourself? Because if you treated yourself with love and respect and held yourself to a high standard, you wouldn't be putting up with that. And so that comes back to being the energetic match for what you want and what you have now. So how are you the energetic match to a toxic partner? How do you treat yourself? When we're with somebody who mistreats us, that's self-abandonment on our part. And when somebody's crossing our boundaries, we're crossing our own boundaries by continuing to be with them. And so you can see how those are just mirrors. I hold myself at such a high standard. I have compassion. I have love for myself. I treat myself the way that I want to be treated by somebody. And inevitably, I attracted somebody who mirrors that fact.
Right. Right. And that was going to be my next question is, so how do you work on doing it?
Mm-hmm. And so I would say the way that I talk to myself, the actions that I take, I actually just put on an event all about becoming your own muse. And so romanticizing the relationship that you have with yourself. And that's, when we think about the way we want to be treated by a partner, we want somebody to sweep us off our feet, do all these little romantic gestures for us and say these kind, loving things. And so I'm like, well, if you want that, then you have to embody that now. So how are we going to start doing that now? And so for myself, I always talk to myself like I'm my biggest fan. I give myself compliments in the mirror. I do a lot of self-care around, making myself romantic candlelit baths or the way that I make my food and the way that I eat my food. It's like just in the simplest ways of being, you romanticize those small things. And so a lot of the times we're on autopilot, we're rushing through life, right? But what if we, in every action that we're taking, we just romanticize that a little bit? And so if you are you get out of the shower and the way that you put your lotion on, are you just slapping it on, or are you taking the time to put it all over your body and thank each part of your body for what it does for you? The way that you get dressed, are you rushing through it, or are you picking something that's going to make you feel good? Are you doing your hair, your makeup the way that you feel, that makes you feel good? Are you eating the way that makes you feel good? So it's all these little actions that we take every day that shows how we love and respect ourselves. And I would say the biggest thing is the way that we speak to ourselves as well. So are we beating ourselves up every time we make a mistake? Or are we saying, wow, you know what, you're learning. Good job for recognizing this.
Wow. It's the small things, huh?
It's the small things that lead up to the quantum leap. A lot of times people think that they need to make these huge, drastic changes, and those just aren't sustainable. It's the small things that make up our entire life. And so if we're doing these small actions every single day, then inevitably the way that we see ourselves is going to be different. The way that we interact with people is going to be different.
Yeah. So how does someone find out more about themselves? Let's say they've never done any of that.
Mm-hmm. So the very first thing I would say is take a thought inventory of how am I talking to myself every day? What thoughts am I thinking? Because we think, what, 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and most of them are the same as we thought before. So of course you're going to have the same life and feel the same way as you've always felt if you're having those same thoughts. And so if you're taking a look at how you're speaking to yourself every day, like, oh my gosh, I'm so miserable. Like for myself, I used to be a complete martyr. Like I would think that everything was happening to me, that everyone was against me. And I would just ruminate on all of the awful things that were going on in my life.
And stop, huh?
Exactly. And so I really got fear. I'm like, oh my gosh, of course, if I'm thinking this way, then I'm going to get that in my reality. And so by taking a thought inventory of like, okay, how am I talking to myself today? What are my thoughts today? What has taken up a lot of mental space today? And just writing that down is so, it's so eye-opening, because awareness is the catalyst for change. If we can become aware of our thoughts, then we can change them one by one. We can say, oh, I recognize that I'm, feeling like I don't have power in this situation. How can I reframe that? And so it's all about having that awareness and then reframing the thoughts to better feeling ones that get you closer to what you want. And then you want to ask, how do I want to feel? So once you have like that clarity on what kind of thoughts you're having, how you're feeling each day, you ask yourself, how do I want to feel? What do I want to experience in my life? It's really like, it's so simple. But most of the times we're also busy and consumed with what's going on in our life that we don't stop to ask, how am I doing? How am I feeling? Is life going the way that I want it to go? Is there anything that I need to do or stop doing? And so it's really just having a relationship with yourself, just as you would talk to another person, like, hey, how was your day? Or, what gets you excited? What lights you up? Ask yourself those questions so that you can learn more about you. And simply enough, it's like, if you can just get clear on how you're feeling, how you want to feel, that says a lot. And then you ask yourself, well, what do I like to do? For the women that I work with that really struggle with codependency, their whole life has been focused on other people and serving other people and giving to other people and putting all the focus on them instead of putting the focus on themselves. And so by putting the focus back and asking, well, what do I like to do? A lot of them will tell me, I don't even know what gets me excited. I don't even know what I want. I don't even know this and that. And so it's all coming back to, well, if you don't know, then you've got to start going out and trying new things. You've got to go out and have new experiences. What did you like when you were younger? When was the best time of your life? And what were you doing then? How were you feeling then? And that can give you a really great direction and just that self-awareness.
Yeah. And none of what you just said is about the other person.
Exactly.
About yourself. It's about yourself. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I know from personal experience for so many years, not ever asking myself, how do I feel?
Yeah. Either.
It's just, no, who cares how I feel? I'm okay. I'm good. I'm good. Like, what does that even mean? I'm good if that's all we ever say. Like, why can't we feel great or outstanding or amazing or high energy?
Yeah. And the thing about that too is, so many of us are so afraid to feel. So if we're all trying to avoid the painful emotions of disappointment, heartbreak, fear, or just any kind of painful emotion, we're also not going to be able to access bliss and happiness and joy, because we have to be able to feel the depths of the lows to also experience the highs of the better feeling emotions. So a lot of us are just in this like monotonous, like very level, numbed out feeling from day to day, because we're too scared to feel the pain. And then we're also too scared to feel the better feeling emotions, because what if it gets taken away?
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some practical steps that someone can start doing?
So what people can really start to do is what I teach my clients when it comes to feeling. For women, we are the gatekeepers of emotion. And so that's really what allows us to be in our divine feminine, and also what really compels a man to feel connected with us, is us being in relation with ourselves and our own emotions. And so we have to allow ourselves to feel what we're scared to feel. And I know that's like, your body's going to fight against it. Your ego is going to tell you that it's not safe, but If you feel disappointed, allow yourself to be with your disappointment. Hold yourself in your disappointment. Don't try to escape it. Don't try to numb out with social media or TV or anything. It's like just being with that emotion in itself, naming it for what it is, and then giving yourself compassion and doing that with every painful emotion that you feel. And then every joyful emotion that you feel, really allowing yourself to absorb it and feel through that. Because a lot of the times what I hear from my clients as well is like the happiness doesn't outweigh, or the joy doesn't outweigh the pain, but it's like they're not reveling in the joyful moments. They're not reveling in the compliments that they're getting. It's kind of like they're just numbing out to it and kind of pushing it to the side instead of being like, wow, this person gave me the best compliment. It made me feel so incredible that they would say something like that. Or, I manifested $20. But really allow yourself to have that experience instead of being like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that's great. But then we really hone in on, oh my gosh, I have this difficult experience with my coworker, or my mom said this rude thing to me, or whatever, is painful for them. They really hone in on that, but completely discount the painful emotion. So, or the better feeling emotion. So feel through your emotions without making a story about it and saying, okay, this is what this means about me, but just allowing yourself to have it and then really absorbing and reveling in the better feeling emotions that you do experience more often than you think. It's just, it gets cast aside.
Okay, so what you're saying is feeling your emotions is step one. And because when we feel our emotions, I think we understand that they're happening inside of our body. And ultimately, we have the power to change them a little bit. It's not like you can take the emotion completely away, but if you sit with the emotion and maybe ask yourself, why am I having this emotion? Maybe something from 10 years ago would pop up, and then you'll be like, okay, all right, let's just understand where that's coming from. Let's sit with it and let it go away. And same thing with like super amazing moments. It's not that we shouldn't live them, but don't rely on just these highs. It's like a drug. If you're going to rely on the high, yeah, the high is going to be nice, but then it's going to bring you down.
Absolutely.
So it's almost like it's just better to be in the middle and just having a little bit better control of these emotions. And the way that you do that is you just literally just sit, maybe with your eyes closed or with a journal or something, or
Yeah. And you can sit with a journal, you can sit with your eyes closed. You can, what I like to do is like make myself a very comfy experience with like my heated blanket, scented something, candles, and really allow it to be, like I said, like a romanticized experience where you're feeling your emotions. You're saying, okay, I feel disappointed. I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my gut. When was the first time that I felt disappointed? It's okay to feel disappointed. And the biggest thing is like when we try to resist these feelings, that's where rumination comes in. That's where we continue to have like this anxiety and this panic and this depression, because we're trying to get away from the emotion. And if we can just be with it and allow it to run its course, then our body gets bored and it's like, okay, you can move on from this now. But most people aren't doing that.
Processing the emotion. If you don't process the emotion, then it gets stuck inside of our body as just this emotional energy.
Exactly.
And that's where like a lot of diseases and stuff come in.
100%.
Or just always feeling like you're on edge because you're just vibrating and, negative emotion.
Yeah. So a story of mine from, when I was going through everything that I was going through last year, I wasn't giving myself enough time to process what happened. And so I was starting to have a lot of anxiety. I was starting to have a lot of intrusive thoughts and depression. And then one day I was like, I'm either going to have a panic attack or I'm going to sit down and I'm going to process this emotion. And within 20 minutes of letting myself have all the feelings that I was feeling, naming it in my body and just giving myself time, space, and compassion, within 20 minutes, all of it left my body. And that night was when I had my first date with my now boyfriend.
Whoa.
And so that was like a very powerful moment for me because of course I teach this stuff and then you kind of forget when it comes to yourself from time to time. And so it was like within it was I remembered exactly 4 months and 28 days from my breakup to that day where I was like, I'm going to process all of this. I'm going to let myself feel it and I'm just going to let it overtake me. And I'm okay with that. And then it all just was like, okay, you did what you were supposed to do. And all of that pain left my body, all the pain left my heart. And I was emotionally ready to have that date with my boyfriend at that point.
So cool. Was
Yeah.
process
Like very device.
stay with the little bit of pain
Mm-hmm.
because that's pain that's inside of you that will stay there.
Mm-hmm. And then you'll project it.
And you'll project it, so it'll bring more pain.
Mm-hmm.
So process the pain, go through that, 20-minute, 30-minute, hour little journey of, going through whatever you want to call it. And then it's gone. And these emotional processes have happened to me too. And every time something greater has come into my life.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, we're releasing something that needs to be released, and then we're making room for something better to come along.
Because we're all energy beings.
Right?
Spiritual energy beings.
And that's what emotions are. They're energy in motion. So it makes sense that, we have to process it and let it run its course. And then when we resist it, that's when, the depression and the anxiety, because the anxiety is panic about the future. And depression is, literally like pushing down your emotions. And so if we can just let ourselves be human and like have these experiences, then, we're we're able to actually call things in. And so a thing about identity, when we do that, we can always ask ourselves, like when we're having big emotions, we can ask, how would my higher self handle this situation? How would my higher self process what's going on right now? Because a lot of times we're like so stuck in who we are and our story that we do what we've always done, right? We've numbed out with drugs, alcohol, men, women, food, TV, whatever. But how would the person that we want to be, desire to be, who we truly are at our core, how would they handle this situation? And so that's a really great way to kind of get out of your head and make different decisions, have different thoughts.
Mm-hmm. And so do you journal that, or do you just visualize it?
I like both. I think visualization is such a powerful tool because what we see inside our minds tends to manifest in our reality. And so I think journaling is really great as well. I journal daily. I do visualization most days, and it just allows yourself to get out of your head. Like journaling is so powerful because it's a release every time you do it. And so if you're saying, and you're just getting your thoughts out of your head and onto paper. And so if you're saying, okay, how would my higher self handle this? And then you start writing down, the thoughts that she would be having, the thoughts, the behaviors that she would be having, then inevitably you're like, okay, well, if that's what she would be thinking and doing, then I'm going to do those things. And if you think and feel and behave as your higher self, inevitably you're going to become that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this whole thing of higher self is basically your highest vision.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever your highest vision is. So that's why it is important to visualize. Because if you can visualize, this is what my dream life looks like, or close to it, right? You're not going to have all the pieces. But that means that's inside of you, and it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. The only difference between you not having it and having it is the actions and the acceptance that you take along the journey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I see a lot of people who they pray or they're trying to manifest and they think that it's just going to come. And the piece that they're missing is the action that it takes because, sure, there's been experiences where you can just think something and then you're like, oh, like I wish that I had $20 and then I found $20 on the ground. I've actually had that happen to me. But when you're wanting to manifest something into your life, you actually have, you want to visualize it, you have the belief, you cultivate the feelings, and then you go take the action that version of you would take. And there's going to be fear. There's going to be, obstacles in the way, but that's part of the journey because your ego is going to want to keep you small, and we're not operating like that. We're wanting to get outside of our comfort zone so we can have everything that we want. So yeah, there's going to be fear, but again, how would your highest self handle that fear? Like for myself, okay, I'd look at that fear and I'd look it in the face and do it anyway.
Wow. but you had to work your way up through trying it once, twice, and then, okay, look what happens after that. I feel so much better. I feel higher, I'm closer to my higher self. Ultimately, I think that's why we step into these different fears, because we know like we're getting to that vision of ourselves.
Yeah. And I like to say, like, for every new level, there's going to be a new devil. It's not like you get to this level and then all of the fears go away or everything's perfect. It's like every level that I've had in my life, I have new problems. But that's the great thing. If you change your problems, you change your life. And so, yeah, it's going to be scary. It's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be messy. You're not always going to do things perfectly. But I think your willingness to change gets you halfway there. And then the rest is you just taking this messy action. And, we stay small because we like certainty in our lives. We like that control. And on the other side of that, we have no idea if it's going to work. We have no idea what's going to come from it. But I would rather, work towards living a better life and having what I want rather than staying stuck. Like, we have to have our desires be stronger than our fears.
Right. Right. And it's more fun to live that way, right? You're not quite sure what's around the corner.
Yeah. And I think people with a lot of trauma, they need that certainty because uncertainty was unsafe. And so it's really recognizing that you are the adult now. You have the power to create what you want in this life, and you get to be the victor, the creator. And yes, that's going to be scary at times, but you can always make it right. You can always fix it. You can always tweak it and figure it out.
Yeah. You're definitely the adult, but you can also live like that inner child that wants to just play around of life.
Yeah, like that childlikeness, that is really how most people are supposed to operate.
Yeah, like why not? All of a sudden one day we're just grown up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we got to act totally different.
Exactly. Like, my playfulness is one of my best qualities, and it makes my life so much more fun and interesting. And like, how can I be playful about something serious? Like, I bring so much play into my business, fun into my life. And a lot of people are very rigid and cold and, living a way that feels controlled to them. And, it's because it just wasn't safe for them to have. Maybe they grew up too fast, or, they had to take care of adult things when they were children. So it just wasn't safe for them to be carefree, and living a carefree life. They had to protect themselves in that way. And so that's a lot of the reason why joy and play and pleasure is taken out of our lives as an adult.
For sure. They created these false selves. Yeah. What is one universal piece of advice you give all your clients?
Ooh, that's a good question. One universal piece of advice I would say is continue to look at what these experiences in your life is teaching you. Because if we don't do that, then again, we're just going to be controlled by what's happening to us. Like, if you're experiencing rejection, what is this rejection teaching me? How can I fall in love with this rejection? How can I fall in love with what's happening? And I know that that's really hard. It's like, no, I don't want to fall in love with this because I don't want it to keep happening. But it's the exact opposite. So if you learn to fall in love with the pain, the lessons, the experiences that you're having, you're actually, you're letting go of all the resistance, and you're allowing it to run its course. And so the more that we resist things, the more they're going to keep happening. But if we can learn to, and that was a big thing for me, was like, I'm learning to fall in love with this heartbreak, and I'm willing to get my heart broken again. And so if you can learn from your pain, and you can take the lessons and actually implement them, because you can know the lessons all day long, but if you do nothing with it, then nothing's going to change. So I would say, if you're learning from your pain, you're extracting those lessons, and then you're acting on that, that's going to absolutely change your life. And it's something that I work with my clients. Like, we are big. My program's called Empowered Academy, and we are big on action and implementation, because you can do all the mindset in the world and have all the pleasure in the world, but if you're not taking the actions you need to take, you're always going to be in the same place.
Fall in love with yourself and fall in love with life, right? Morning, awesome. How can our audience reach you?
So I'm on Facebook. That's where I do most of my work. And so my name is Morgan Danielle on Facebook. And then I have a Facebook group called Break the Cycle. And that's free. You can come in and get trainings and free trainings that I've done and resources. And it's a really fun place to be.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. Let's do this again soon.
Yes. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, guys. Yeah. Thanks for listening. See you later. Bye.